important as a teacher to always take time to lesson plan. Lesson planning is when you pretty much have an objective. You know what you want to teach in your classroom, and whatever that is, whether it's a grammar class or conversation class, you want to make sure that you have an objective, a purpose for that lesson. You want to make sure that if you're using any textbooks or materials that you list them and you incorporate that into your lesson. And lesson planning can be done in many different ways. It really depends on the school or your own personal agenda. If you're working at a school where there's a curriculum set, then you follow that curriculum. If you're doing this on your own, then you will have to make decisions as to what you want to use in your lessons. It's important as teachers to make sure that when you are lesson planning, that you take time to have an objective. You want to be sure what it is you are going to do in your class, as well as any goals you're trying to set. For example, if you're teaching a grammar class, you want to make sure that your grammar students are well prepared for whatever you're going to teach, whether it's at the beginner level, intermediate, or advanced level. The same goes for conversation classes. And being a teacher, one of the benefits is you get the opportunity to decide how you want to go about that. When you decide what your objective is, you want to make sure that you create a lesson that's not only comfortable for you to teach, but to also help your students learn. As a teacher, you get the opportunity to decide how you want to implement your lesson. Now, if you're a new teacher, this will take some practice and some time getting used to. But if you're an experienced teacher, the one thing I personally like to do in my classes is do a get-to-know activity. One of the things I like to do as a teacher is do a get-to-know exercise. Not only this gives you a chance to introduce yourself and have your students introduce themselves to you, but it's also a way for you to listen to their pronunciation, their speaking skills. It's like your own little assessment, because you want to make sure that before you get started into your lesson that you have an idea what level the students are. This is especially important if you're doing this independently. However, if you're working at a school or say at a nonprofit organization, this may not be such a necessity, because usually schools or nonprofits will in fact do their own assessment testing. However, even with that, you still as a teacher want to get an idea, because this will help you personally when you are implementing a lesson. So lesson planning can be very effective depending on the situation and the circumstance. And I will personally suggest that getting to know your students is a sure way of knowing how to go about your lessons. And it's also a way for you to showcase your personality and allow them to showcase theirs.